All right, Mark,
Okay,
just so you know, I told Sophie I got a very hard stop at noon. That's why we wanted to start early, because I'm talking to the special trade representative at noon about some big issues on my infrastructure bill and trade issues on.
All right, we will let you go.
Sure. Okay, let's go.
Let's
What do you
get
want to know?
started. We want to know about the Columbia River Bridge. So the main topic of conversation today is there's a how much money is in Biden's infrastructure package? Forgive me. I think it's 80 billion.
No. The whole package. He's increasing roads, bridges, highways by 40%, transit by 140%, and rail by some infinite number. I think the total number comes close to 6 for those aspects. You've seen the Senate Republicans put out a bill. They're talking about baseline. Plus, they're actually cutting transit 40%, increasing roads, bridges, highways by 10%, and not doing much for rail. So we're way apart. And I can tell you how I think we're moving forward, which my leadership has accepted because nobody really knows how to do it. But of particular relevance in the Biden plan is a proposal for discretionary power to the secretary to rebuild the 10 most economically significant bridges in the United States. I already got the Columbia River crossing years ago designated as a project of national significance. I think we'd make the cut. I think someone said we were 11th, but we could push. The problem is we don't have a plan. Washington State was supposed to, put aside some money. They didn't in their session. When I asked the governor when she was here about a month ago for the second gentleman where we were at, she just kind of was like, well, So I'm not sure that Oregon's going to be ready, and they want all these projects to be capable of being completed in 8 years. So I'm concerned about the rather slow pace that we're going through. I mean, last time the only federal commitment we had was for light rail that Patty Murray and I got, which we got out of the FTA. The guy who ran the FTA then is now running Seattle Transit, and it was a project of first impression because they'd never done a rail project incorporated into a major highway bridge. But we finally got it approved. It took years under Obama, but then of course the whole thing went south. That was a $750 million commitment. Oregon will get generally a 40% increase if my bill passes in roads, bridges, highways, and we'll keep the increment that I got in the 2006 bill. So we get a little extra out of that, about 60 million a year out of that. So, I mean, we're going to be fairly well resourced, but we don't have a plan right now.
Let's say that we did. Would you allow me a hypothetical that we have? Sure. Do you think this bridge could qualify for being one of the 10 most important bridges in the country?
I think so. I would certainly argue that. I mean, if that bridge goes down, I think I-5 is the 5th busiest truck route in the United States. It connects not only the 5th largest economy in the world, California, to Oregon, Washington, Canada, and Mexico. We were at very high risk of failure. I mean, I would assume they're also going to look, when they're going for this list, what bridges are most at risk. Given the potential for Cascadia, we are at extraordinary risk of losing that bridge. And I'm not even sure that 205 is up to standards to survive a very severe Cascadia because of when it was built. I have never, tell the truth, I've never asked that question. I should.
How quickly go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry, Aaron. Congressman, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. You said you believe that a new CRC should qualify, but it may not because there is currently no plan between Washington and Oregon. Is that correct? Yeah,
that would be a problem. The administration wants projects that can happen. They'll give you, it doesn't have to, that's not the Obama shovel ready stuff. We're not doing that. I've been very firm. We're not doing that. But they want things that are feasible in an 8-year window. And, I'm not sure, given, the Washington legislature adjourning, and I don't, I don't know what, there's some discussions going on, but I don't know where we're at, and the governor didn't know anything. I should talk to Strickler about it again, I guess, and ask if they've made any progress, but I haven't had time recently because I'm working on the national bill.
Have you had conversations with both Kate Brown and Jay Inslee on this?
I haven't talked to Jay about it recently. No, I haven't.
So just Kate.
Yeah, that was just, it was a part of a conversation when she was down here for the second gentleman. It wasn't a targeted conversation on CRC. I just started talking about the infrastructure bill and, things I'd like to get done and how we really needed to get moving on CRC.
And you didn't feel like she was terribly optimistic?
Well, I didn't get much out of it, so I can't say about level of optimism.
Where do you see the urgency on this in Oregon and Washington? What level of urgency is there, and should it be higher?
Well, again, we don't know when Cascade is going to happen, and that those bridges are, in all likelihood, are going down. God forbid there's a bunch of people on them and it's rush hour. We need to, I felt a sense of urgency previously, which is why I got it designated as a project of national significance, and why Patty and I put a lot of time into at least getting that money for light rail. Of course, the light rail, I think, is still a sticking point, as I understand it, from my conversations, that there's still a back and forth. Last time I talked to Strickler, the head of ODOT, over whether, well, maybe we just do bus rapid transit, but you could put light rail there later. And I said, that doesn't really work for me. The level of federal funding for something like bus rapid transit is going to be nowhere near what we would get for light rail. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't know what the concern is on the other side of the river. I talked to I think attitudes have changed over there, but apparently there's some lingering concern about bringing light rail over, and all the undesirables will ride the light rail, I guess. I don't know what the hell they're concerned about.
Congressman Blumenauer has described light rail as a must-have for this project. Do you see it the same way?
I think it would be incredibly stupid to do this project without extending light rail over the river. Yes.
Last I checked, Congresswoman Herrera Butler does not agree with you and thinks that it would be stupid to have light rail in Vancouver. What's your response to that?
I haven't talked to Jamie about this issue since she was on my committee a number of years ago. I think there's still an exchange we had up on YouTube somewhere that was, shall we say, somewhat heated. I was in the minority at the time. I thought she had evolved a bit. I don't know. I haven't talked to her about it. She's evolved on a number of other issues, so I just haven't talked to her about this one.
So let me broaden that question. Make your argument for why light rail is such a crucial piece of a project of this significance.
Well, connecting Vancouver with all the commuters with light rail would be absolutely critical. Running BRT, they're running BRT up there now. Essentially, they're running their buses in the breakdown lanes down to the Oregon border where we don't allow it. That's another conversation I've had with ODOT, which is, by the way, when are we going to get with the rest of the country and start utilizing all of the asphalt or concrete we have? Many cities use their breakdown lanes for commuters at rush hour. Others, like Washington State, are using it for buses, but when they get here, they got to get back into traffic. So that's, but that's another issue. But the point is, we've got light rail up in Northeast Portland, and taking it over the river just makes ultimate sense. It's way more energy efficient. It can handle more capacity, and it has a higher initial cost. But I think in the long run, it would be less expensive versus operating a whole bunch of buses.
Congressman, I'm sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
No, please. Actually, I'd like you to take a turn.
Okay. So I want to ask you about your bill as it relates to climate change, but specifically, Bill Gates in his book talks about the importance of realizing the enormous carbon footprint of concrete and steel.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if your bill seeks to address that at all.
Absolutely. Actually, I was on a conference call with Bill about a month ago, and we talked about a number of issues relating to transportation, and had interesting conversation and get into in a minute about hydrogen. But no, concrete right now, we can reduce the carbon footprint's about 7%. We can drop that to 3.5% with current kilns and technology by adding coal ash to the mix, which Europe has been doing for decades. We have huge piles of coal ash we don't know what to do with. But the last time I proposed that, a bunch of environmentalists said, "Oh my God, it's slightly radioactive, blah, blah, blah." And I talked to OSU and they said, "Yeah, if you went out and laid on the road in the sun for an hour, you would get more radioactivity than laying on that road for like a year." So that's a specious complaint. And plus we have these coal ash ponds that are disintegrating and would be put it to good use. But there's new technology that moves beyond that. Knife River here in my district, building this new facility, showed me they're experimenting with sequestering carbon, creating calcium carbonate. Then you take the calcium carbonate and you crush it up and you mix it into the concrete so it's forever sequestered. And it makes the concrete way stronger. OSU is actually experimenting with carbon negative concrete, which I don't fully understand. You'd have to talk to this scientist about it. I couldn't quite follow the whole thing, but so you can extract, like there are places where there's a pretty pure carbon stream coming out. I'm not a big fan of ethanol, but the ethanol stacks they're now talking about, they put out almost a straight CO2 in just water. So it's easier to extract CO2 from that than from a regular factory where it's mixed with a whole bunch of other shit. So you could use those sources and you mix it with whatever to create calcium carbonate, and then you're sequestering all that CO2 and making the concrete stronger. Asphalt, they're doing more recycling, they're doing better, but obviously we don't really have a substitute that I'm aware of yet for the fossil fuel mix that goes into it. But a major focus of my bill is, I mean, the Republicans, in all of them on my committee opposing it last Congress, called it the Green New Deal 2.0. Because of the provisions in the bill, which are woven through every aspect of the bill. It's not going to be like the Senate bill that has we got a climate title. No. For instance, I'm going to say that states, and there's, some states are doing better than others, need to look at, if they have capacity issues and they have congestion issues, they have to look at all the alternatives before they lay any more concrete or asphalt. I had really great testimony from Virginia DOT in my committee a month ago. And they've got huge problems on 95 south to Richmond. They said, okay, we looked at it, 10 to 12 billion to add one more lane each way. And by the time we finish, it'll be congested again. So they decided to go a different route. It's a Democratic administration. They negotiated with CSX, and they're going to have a greatly enhanced commuter rail. Now it's expensive because they have to build a new bridge over the Potomac River. It's going to cost $4 billion or $5 billion. That's half of what it would cost to expand the freeway. You get rid of the carbon footprint from all those cars, and people will have a better commuting experience. So I'm going to make all the DOTs, under the policies of my bill, if they can survive the Senate, look at those sorts of alternatives. I mean, Texas just wants to pave everything over, as do many other states. Plus, we're doing a major electrification. We're going to electrify the national highway network. The Republicans, again, they say they don't believe in climate change. I can't believe they don't. But anyway, they don't want this climate stuff in the bill. And I said, okay, well, how about electrification for business? And they're like, so I held a hearing on the business case for electrification about 6 or 8 weeks ago. I had Fred Smith, very conservative Republican who runs FedEx, come in and testify. Their heads were spinning around. Fred says, climate change is real. We got to deal with it. And I'm going all electric. And they're like, And by the way, there's no place to charge an electric semi right now. I drove a semi on Monday this week or Tuesday, whenever, Volvo, and that thing can tow 80,000 pounds. Now it's a shorter range truck, but they already have a longer range semi that they've built, and Daimler-Benz is building them, Freightliner is building them, and Tesla is building them. So they're coming. So we got to electrify, and then in electrifying, we're going to partner with the Energy and Commerce Committee, who's going to put about 90 billion into more renewable power and a whole bunch of money into rebuilding and reinforcing the grid so we can distribute that power for the national highway system with electrification. So the major focus of this bill is to deal with climate change, deal with resilience. I mean, they're probably going to say, oh, we'll go with resilience. I said, well, why is sea level rising and why do we have these events? Let's deal with the root cause at the same time. So anyway, it's a major, and it goes through materials. It also has research for new materials that would be less carbon intense.
So one more last climate question. As you know from talking to Bill Gates, he's a supporter of nuclear power. And I'm wondering if your views have changed on that all over the decades.
Well, I have actually supported OSU when they were beginning to develop the idea of mass-produced small modular reactors. And now they've spun that off into
That's
a
NuScale?
Yeah,
NuScale?
Yeah, that started at OSU in the physics department. And they've spun it off. Here's the deal. I say to people, well, they have solved 3 of the 4 problems. I mean, they've solved cost. They've solved the potential for, meltdowns. They have no moving parts. Potential for terrorism. I mean, these nuclear plants are a bomb in place waiting. I mean, all you have to do is kill the generators that they have on site and cut off the incoming power, and these things will melt down. So they're great terrorist targets. I learned all that stuff on Homeland when I was on Homeland. But these things are immune to all that. We still haven't figured out what to do with the waste. That's the sticking point. What I've proposed previously is we put it, they have these containers you can put on a train, they can like crash and they're not going to open up, and take and move all the waste out, all the ponds all around the country, and put them in the desert in Nevada, standing up in these casks, and let some other, the next generation figure out what the hell to do with this stuff. Don't bury it in a place that's geologically unstable. But the law says you can't have permanent storage and temporary storage in the same state. So, and we have been unable to change that. And so Nevada, so I don't know what we're going to do with the waste. That's the big issue here.
But it sounds like you are warming to the idea of nuclear energy being in this country's energy.
Well, and these things are safe. I mean, these modular reactors, they're going to come off a production line.
No, I know. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to clarify your position. It is kind of ironic that what appears to be the most promising nuclear power company in America is based in Oregon, one of the most anti-nuclear states.
Yeah, well, there's a competing company. I don't know whose it is. I think that Bill Gates is involved in. So,
but I mean, NuScale is clearly a leading edge company in this.
Oh yeah, no, I think they are in the FERC process, for approval, or the NRC process.
Another question about your bill: to what degree do you have responsibility for thinking about cybersecurity, particularly as it relates to this country's infrastructure? I just, if you'll indulge me, I just finished reading Nicole Perlroth's book, This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends, and she's actually speaking at TechFest about the cyber wars. And there's a chapter in there about how the Iranians targeted the Arthur Bowman Dam in Prineville, and that we're going to shut it down, which would have been catastrophic. But they got their geography wrong, and they shut down a small dam called the Bowman Dam in Vermont that is irrelevant.
Oh my God, I'll have to read the book and get depressed. Cybersecurity is an ongoing argument between Homeland and Intel. I don't have jurisdiction.
So in terms of infrastructure, dams, or anything that you relate to, that's not really part of the conversation.
No, they handle cybersecurity. I do the physical stuff.
Gotcha.
I mean, the only place there's two areas where I'm involved where we're dealing with the FCC, and one is vehicle-to-vehicle communications, and they're moving ahead with a very bad plan for 5G that will sop up a lot of what we need for V2V communications to be safe and to have autonomous vehicles. And I heard today they put out their rule, which I've been opposing, but this administration and the last one are apparently sucking up to the telecom companies. I'm going to talk to Buttigieg about it. And then there's another company that took over, another defunct company that wants to do satellite based that could potentially interrupt our GPS, which would be a little bit of a problem that I'm also fighting. But those are the only areas I really get into cyber stuff.
Sophie, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so going back to light rail, are you hopeful that Washington lawmakers will ever be on board with the idea of a light rail, or do you think that's going to be a sticking point that's ever going to prevent this from coming to fruition?
Well, they got a lot of light rail in Seattle. I don't fully understand what the objection is. I know what the objection of my Republican colleagues in Washington is. They're always all for BRT because you can make it go away. They're not for light rail because it's a fixture, and they can't make it go away. So we can cut the bus budgets, and there goes BRT. But the light rail's already is built, installed, and has right of way. So that's the resistance in DC. I mean, Toomey, the ranking Republican on the committee, I have to deal with 3 committees in the Senate. I have to deal with Commerce, Energy, with EPW, and with banking. Banking has transit, Commerce has rail, and EPW has my other issues. And this guy, Toomey from Pennsylvania, and a guy on my committee, Perry from Pennsylvania, they just hate transit. They hate it. And so Toomey's proposing to cut existing transit by 40%. And we already have a $100 billion backlog to bring existing transit up to a state of good repair, let alone build out new stuff. That was the biggest fight in the last time we did a rail transportation bill, 2006, Safety Lou. We fought for 2 months over moving transit to a 20% share. We moved it up from 18, and that took 2 months in negotiating with the Senate. So,
Based on where we're at right now in Oregon and Washington, what percentage would you place the chances that a Columbia River Bridge is going to happen inside your bill?
I can't say. I'm not in the legislature. I'm not a governor. I don't know what I haven't talked to Chris Strickler for probably 2 months, the guy who's head of ODOT, who would be the most informed person on the issue, because I've been very busy focusing on my national bill. So I'm not up to date. I don't know what progress they may or may not have made.
And again, going back to the hypothetical situation of if we did have, a fully fleshed out plan, how do we eke ourselves into the top 10 if we're currently at 11?
But I couldn't quite hear you.
How would we get ourselves into the top 10?
We would provide statistics. I mean, years ago when they told me I couldn't get a Category 2 landing system at Eugene because we didn't have enough traffic. And I said, yeah, but we have this unique problem with a cold weather fog, and we have more diverted flights than airports much larger than us. And I fought it through with the FAA, and they said, well, you're right. It's an unusual case. And I think in this case, when we start talking about the potential for Cascadia subduction and the collapse of those 2 bridges and what the economic cost would be, that we could move up on that list.
Shifting subjects slightly, Arcimoto.
Yep.
What do you make of their sudden meteoric rise in value, and what do you think they mean for electrification in Oregon?
Well, I was just out there about a month ago and drove version whatever it is now, 12 or something, I don't know. Very cool. And they have a business plan that makes sense to me in terms of they're going to be looking at tourist markets, for instance. They're negotiating with Key West and places. And in addition, they're looking at like kind of an Uber model for these things. I think that for within urban areas, they have a very viable product. I mean, they're continually evolving, you know, you know, I have great hopes. I mean, they have now bought a facility, a large facility that I was there. It wasn't yet in full production, but with a lot of very heavy duty, cutting edge technology to you know, ramp up production dramatically. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to see actual a lot. I mean, I can't remember what their numbers are. You know, I don't know if Dan's on the call, but they had some pretty big projections for employment out there in West Eugene in the not too distant future.
Peter, you many years ago proposed a tax or a fee on Wall Street transactions above a certain amount. It won you the enmity of the Mercer family, and it's the reason why you've had campaigns that have been well financed. A couple of questions. Did the Mercers finance your current, you know, Scarlotus's campaign? And has your proposal surfaced as an option for raising money? I mean, Biden's got a lot of proposals to tax the rich, but I'm wondering if that one has come up.
I have proposed it to Brian Dees, his chief economist. You know, it got some legs. Jim Clyburn came out wholeheartedly in support of my transaction tax. And Clyburn, you know, as you know, a lot of people say Biden wouldn't be president without Jim Clyburn. You know, we're pushing it as a viable alternative. I mean, you still get the same bullshit from Wall Street. Oh God, if you do a transaction tax, we'll lose liquidity. No, what you lose is, you know, the people who do, you know, the Flash Boys. You know, if you ever read that book, you lose the people who are doing this, you know, hyper fast trading at tiny increments. You know, so I think I'm pretty sure you know, things have been pretty hectic. I'm pretty sure I've got my bill reintroduced. I've been partnering. I'm trying to remember who I'm partnering with now in the Senate on it. And so we're pushing it. It's viable. You know, the numbers are, you know, it depends on, there's a cut point where if you get to a certain point with the tax, some people say, well, if we have a even bigger transaction tax, we'll get more money. No, I mean, the Congressional Budget Office and others say, no, there's a point at which transactions will drop off dramatically. First, you drive out the Flash Boys, but then you start cutting into other more legitimate trading in the market. So the estimates are $40 to $60 billion a year, but that's not exactly a chump change. And it would get rid of the most destructive traders on Wall Street, who are just gamblers and running supercomputers like the Mercers and others, which is why I earned his enmity. We don't know who funded Scarlatos. It was the most expensive congressional race in Oregon history. There was close to 8 to 9 million on their side. A lot of it was dark money, super PACs. There's already a super PAC running ads against me now. You know, my district is now rated R+1, and who knows what it'll be with redistricting. And I'm on their top target list. They're only running TV in 12 districts, Democratic districts, attacking us, and I'm one of the 12. So, but we don't know who's behind it. There's no way of knowing because it's all dark money.
Congressman, assuming you get reelected as often as you choose, how many more terms do you plan on serving?
Mark, I take it 2 years at a time. I've told you that before. I haven't, you know, I am raising funds for reelection, but we got to wait and see where the districts go. There are maps. I've seen credible maps that are 4-1-1. I've seen credible maps that are 4-2. Charlie Cook's guy drew a map that was 3-3, where I would be in a very red district, and even I couldn't overcome that. And so that would be a time to bow out. So we got to see what happens. And of course, Ms. Kotek created even more uncertainty because of giving away the Democratic advantage in redistricting. So inevitably, you know, the congressionals are going to court, and who knows what a court will do with it, the courts.
All right,
I know we're running, Mark, go ahead.
No.
I know we're running out of time, so I want to just jump back to your infrastructure bill one more time.
Sure.
Can you just speak to what you see as the opportunity for Oregon within this bill? What most excites you for our state within this funding package?
Well, I mean, you know, we have set some pretty robust targets, Eugene, very robust targets for dealing with climate action, climate change, and reducing fossil fuel pollution. And the potential in my bill is phenomenal. I mean, I'm going to do a big electric bus program. LTD down here is, you know, going to have 15 by the end of next year. You know, I mean, TriMet looking at a big electrification program. You know, I'm going to put a lot of money into electric buses, into electric charging. And, you know, so we can do away with range anxiety. You know, Ways and Means is looking at what we'll do for tax credits to make electric EVs more affordable. And then you get things like Arcimoto. The staff just handed me this. They have 135 employees now. They're going to go up to 200 this spring, and they're hoping by the end of 22 to be able to produce 50,000 vehicles a year. That would be incredible. And we become a little Detroit, three-wheel Detroit. And then my Wall Street Tax Act, the estimates were 77 billion a year. And when's the date? I introduced it back in January. That's why I couldn't remember. So we've already reintroduced it. Doesn't say who's got it in the Senate on here. But anyway, Blumenauer's on it, and others.
And I apologize that I continue to keep circling back to the same concept of urgency around the CRC. But what you said at the beginning of this interview really captured my attention, and it did because you essentially suggested to us that that state legislators in the Capitol buildings in Salem and Olympia are not seeing the opportunity here that is presented to them for a generational project. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, I'm not sensing a sense of urgency. I mean, look, you know, to tell the truth, I raised concerns about the rescue package. I said, I think why don't we put some money into real infrastructure? Because I'm not sure I'm going to get my infrastructure bill done. And we're giving the states too much money. Oregon, we filled in their hole and they've got an extra $1.3 billion. Well, you know, maybe if they feel a sense of urgency, and well, I don't know what Washington State's got. They're bigger than us. They've probably got an extra, I don't know, $2 or $3 billion. If there was a sense of urgency, you'd think both of the legislatures are saying, well, whoa, let's set aside some significant portion of that money as an initial down payment on getting this critical project done. But I don't know that I'm hearing that discussion.
Those are my questions. We probably have time for
Great.
one.
Hey, I think we should probably wrap up. I want to make sure Peter has enough time to get onto his next call.
It's a no, Beth. I can do 2 more minutes because it's a conference call. She won't be
I got
early.
a silly question for you, Peter. You're on a number of caucuses.
Yeah.
I think the one you're proudest of is the beer caucus that you were the founder of. But
the Progressive Caucus, I was a co-founder too.
All right. But you're also on the Veterinary Medicine Caucus.
Yep.
What the hell is that?
There are issues in veterinary medicine, and I've got a veterinary medical school in my district. And OSU asked if I would get on the caucus. There's issues that relate to pharmaceuticals and also federal funding for veterinary schools and that. And so so it's an advocacy group for veterinary schools across the United States, and I've got a good one here.
Is Schrader on that caucus?
I would assume so. He's an animal veterinarian.
Yeah.
I assume he is.
Yeah. That's my serious question of the day.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I once was asked by when the Oregonian was still sort of a newspaper. One of the reporters said, "How many caucuses are you on?" I said, "You got me. I'll have to ask my staff." And they came back, and it was some pretty large number. I mean, there are a lot of, there's they're all, a lot of them are for good causes. There's one around diabetes, Alzheimer's. We're fighting for research money and all that. And you can aggregate members very quickly if you're in a caucus. Say, hey, we, like with my beer caucus, when we were having the big fight over what they were going to do with their spent grains, and they wanted to put it into a regulatory structure where they couldn't give it away anymore to farmers. And so I'm able to like muster up, we are the largest caucus in Congress, a whole bunch of signatures. And I got a guy from the FDA out to a brewery and said, okay, here's the issue. Here's what anyway, we got that changed. It would have meant we would have been putting all that stuff in landfills instead of giving it to farmers to feed the cattle and hogs who love the stuff. So the caucuses can serve a purpose, not just drinking good beer. And it's about the only place where I see some of these Republicans, and the only place I would ever talk to them, like McHenry from North Carolina. Why would I ever want to talk to that guy except over beer?
Does he ever try an Oregon beer?
Oh, I'm always peddling Oregon beer on them. And we've had Oregon breweries at, well, COVID, we haven't been able to do them, but we usually do 2 big events a year in DC. And I've had Rogue there, I've had Widmer there, I've had Deschutes there. I think Oakshire was there once. Yeah.
At this
Okay.
point, I think we should.
I gotta go. I gotta go be a trade expert, guys, and talk to Catherine Tai. So anyway, thanks, Mark. We still got to get that beer sometime in Portland. I always have trouble getting together. We'll do it.
Good.
We
Good.
really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks. Yep, bye.
All right, Sophie, I'm not sure I have your email, but I can send the recording to Aaron if you'd like.
That's
That's
fine.
fine.
You can send it to me.
I've gotten off there. Okay, great. Well, thanks, Aaron. I'm glad we got to set this up.
This was a great conversation. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye.